Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we are jumping back into Last Epoch. They just recently launched the third season titled Beneath Ancient Skies. Now, I've been playing over the past few days, checking out the latest stuff, trying some different builds, and I'm here with an overview of what's new, what's changed, and some initial thoughts. Special thank you to 11th Hour for sponsoring today's video. I've been playing Last Epoch since early access and have returned for every one of these major new seasons. I'm just happy that the game's trucking along nicely. It's been nice to come back and revisit it every few months, and it's nice to have a fresh face on the ARPG scene as well. You know, you love to see it. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in and talk about what is new with Season 3. So for starters, they have expanded the base campaign, adding the 10th chapter with a new main story quest line that takes us into some new zones while facing off against a whole bunch of new enemies. This chapter has us traveling to the ancient era, where we make our way through forest, snow-swept mountains, volcanic dragon layers, underground crystalline caverns, and temples high up in the sky. There are 17 new zones in total, all of which use lots of really bright and vibrant colors. It's quite a bit of pop to these areas. Looks really nice. I think it's also worth mentioning that they have made improvements to the game's visuals overall, the whole presentation across the board, not just in the new areas. The game's just looking better in general. Now, while making your way through the Chapter 10, you're going to be encountering a host of new enemies inspired by the prehistoric era. We got 28 new enemy types consisting of a mix of living plant life, a variety of dinosaurs, and various massive insects, just to name a few. And in addition to this new chapter, these areas and enemies, they've also added a new game mechanic called Primal Hunts. Now, this is similar to the Nemesis system in that these are random encounters you will periodically come across while playing through the campaign, as well as doing the endgame mapping, or as it's otherwise known, the monolith system. Basically, in most zones in the game, you now have a chance to also spawn this encounter. So if a primal hunt does appear on your map, you're going to see these glowing claw marks as you walk near. Clicking on it for the very first time then teleports you to this ancient cave where you'll be introduced to the Hunt Master. Now, this NPC, beyond being your initial quest giver for hunts, also sells various new goodies and a bulk of the new items and uniques that were added with this update. Okay, so you click on the claw marks, you teleport into the cave, you pick up the quest, and then you march your way forward, clearing groups of enemies as you make your way through this cave system, which they're actually referred to as the breeding grounds, and in the process collecting an assortment of new resources, different bones and dinosaur parts basically. After winding down a few corridors, you will eventually arrive at the final room, a boss encounter where you take on the Rift Beast. Now, this creature is like an amalgamation of different dino predators. It starts off kind of basic looking, almost looks like a lizard of sorts, but then it gets kind of more over the top via this system of evolutions. So how this works is you fight the boss, you kill it, after which you click on its nest where you will be given a choice of 3 different evolutions. Now, depending on which one you pick, the Rift Beast is going to gain new abilities and also physically change in appearance, getting additional heads or sprouting wings or different kinds of horns or having vines pop up out of its shoulder, all sorts of stuff. In fact, there are 60 different potential evolutions to choose from that the Rift Beast can have applied to it. And these evolutions correspond to different rewards as well. So you're going to pick the evolution, for the most part, you're going to pick the evolution that will drop the items and or resources that you are after. With that, the beast changes visually while also gaining new abilities. Then, the next time a map of yours spawns a primal hunt in it, clicking on those glowing claw marks now summons that newly evolved, stronger beast for you to fight. So you fight him, you kill him, and you collect your rewards. This happens a few times. You'll go to another map, you'll find some more claw marks, click on it, the beast comes out, you kill it again, you get some more rewards, and then eventually you're going to be summoned back to the ancient cave, where you then go about clearing your way once more, defeating the boss at the end, and selecting the next evolution, further enhancing and changing the Rift Rift Beasts. Now this actually happens multiple times, with the beast getting stronger and stronger in the process with all of these new evolutions applied to it, until eventually you reach the end of its lineage and do kill it for the final time, where you get a huge reward along with some of the new items introduced in the season. And then as you keep on playing, you will of course come across more primal hunts, and that process starts over again. You go through the ancient cave, you fight the beast, you kill him once, and then you select his first evolution, and so on and so on and so on. But all of this in the process, you're getting various new resources that fuel into the new items. These are primal uniques, new, very powerful items, of which you can only equip one per character. Now you can change this whenever you want. It's not like a permanent selection. It's just that you can't have two primal uniques equipped at the same time. You can only ever be wearing one. Now these do all sorts of things. There's one that summons a T-Rex companion, for example. The one that I'm using is a little more boring, but provides some real nice boost for me. Specifically, I've got the Reliquary Nest of Life. This is a relic that improves the effect of my idols, adds to all resistances, increases the endurance threshold, along with granting some extra health and stun avoidance. Really, it's just a nice stat stick, and one of the nice big boost is the increase to the idol effects, which obviously synergizes with having idols that play into my build, right? But it's specifically, I'm doing the bear companion build, and it's going pretty well. This thing just dominates. Now beyond that, there are a lot more interesting primal uniques, with 25 in total, and then 5 additional uniques that were added with this update. And on top of that, they have added the Rune of Evolution, which lets you modify an exalted item which has at least one tier 7 affix on it. It will then upgrade a tier 7 to tier 8, which is the newest highest tier in the game, granting between 50 and upwards of 100% additional effectiveness to that affix, which is just crazy. Even crazier is it seals that affix, separating it from the base 4 that you have in items, and it's a separate seal from the other seals, so that means you can eventually have exalted items with 6 affixes on them, which is nuts. And one of those affixes will be tier 8, doubling its previous effectiveness. There's really big boost in power here. So you got the new chapter, the new zones, the primal hunt system, the new enemies, as well as these primal uniques. That really makes up a bulk of what we would consider the new content of this update. But there was also a long list of updates and changes to the rest of the game. Just a quick overview of some of the noteworthy stuff. So the campaign got reworked with some several encounters and boss fights updated, changed, and improved. Monolith system, the quest progression is now shared between party members. They also added new woven echoes that are based around the Rift Beasts, on top of there being 6 new monolith zones based on Chapter 10. For the game's dungeons, the tier unlocks are now going to be shared between characters who share a stash. We saw quite a few balance changes and adjustments to the game, class balance, loads of changes here. There are some new heavy hitters. Specifically, they really focused on overhauling both the Lich and the Beastmaster, both of which have some very strong builds right now. In fact, at the moment, I am playing one of the newly popular Beastmaster builds, where most of my damage comes from my bear companion. He is just super juiced to the point of absolutely stomping on bosses. The speed running might not be the best, although I've tried to deal with that by having like a leap focus build, and my leap causes my bear to be summoned directly to me, and so that kind of offsets the fact that the minions are kind of sometimes going this way and that. Although they have made some big changes to help try to address that. You now have the option to toggle between an aggressive and a defensive stance for your minions, on top of the fact that they've made some AI improvements so that your minions are more reliable, but still like sometimes they're not exactly where I want them to be. But there's also an attack command, so I can kind of micromanage that if necessary. They did get rid of snapshotting, where you would be like summoning your minions with one set of gear and then swapping to a different set of gear with the minions still maintaining the bonus. They got rid of that doing that, but they try to make up for it with the fact that they've now buffed minion stats across the board for their offensive and defensive capabilities. We also saw some updates to items, affixes, and enemy balance, updates to various unique and set items. There were some changes to item factions and endgame factions as well. A lot of different quality of life things here. So loot filter will now let you customize ground beams and item icons per rule. There's some new sound effects updates added for valuable loot drops as well to make it more distinct. and they have things like stash search macros to help make finding different gear types and affixes a bit easier. Some general UI polish, the controller support got improved, there's been performance improvements. They said they have hundreds of bug fixes and optimization to improve stability, gameplay clarity, and performance, and there were some updates to the game's visual and sound, as I mentioned earlier. Both of these have been improved with a lot more polish. The game should just now look better and have some better sound effects, particularly certain abilities. Also, a bunch of new VO for various NPCs, and of course with a new season comes new cosmetics. There are multiple new season-specific supporter packs. These include the Primal Traveler, the Templar, the Vanquisher, and the Legends packs. These are tiers, with every subsequent tier costing more but rewarding all the previous tiers as well. And yeah, these are just new cosmetic skins, different effects, cosmetic items, and some pets that follow you around if you want to support the devs beyond the initial purchase price of the game. Now, I think it's also worth mentioning that when you think of seasons in ARPGs, sometimes this is like temporary content in these games that goes away in the subsequent season, but that's not how they're doing it in Last Epoch. And the reason I mention that is because this is like a smaller season in scope of the new things and like the amount of time that it's adding on top of what the base game already has. But it's adding to that list of growing stuff. So like if you've not played since release or since the first season, last season was pretty big as well. They had Tombs of the Erased, and again, it's worth noting that all of that is in the game still, because seasons in Last Epoch have been working as sort of jumping off points for them to add new, more permanent content rather than being these temporary additions that are later removed. So the Tombs of the Erased, that added the whole woven faction of spider-like creatures, the system of tombs and cemeteries, which are these procedurally generated side zones occupied by those woven enemies that have their own unique bosses and rewards. And those tombs can spawn in any echo, which is just like when you're in the end game mapping on the monoliths, that's where you're going to see these tombs and cemeteries. The final rooms in these areas contain all sorts of rewards, as well as a woven device that can be used to enchant any class-specific idols, adding additional affixes to it. They also have these woven echoes, which let you generate echoes in your monolith map if you're targeting specific rewards and crafting mechanics. Also, the woven faction with a new weaver tree that lets you pick from powerful passives to enhance your endgame monolith farming, as well as them having added a whole new class of enemies called champions, which are a subset of rare enemies with unique names and more powerful abilities, and these always drop an item with a sealed champion affix, some of which can be very valuable. Yeah, Season 3 has been a nice new addition to the game for sure, and again, while the amount of new content might not tally up to tons of additional hours of playtime, like when it comes to playing through Chapter 10 and these additional side activities, the main point stands that it does help further flesh out the base of the game. They're building upon that foundation with every new season. And if they keep this up season after season, what is already a solid ARPG is just going to keep getting even better. I'd say I'm pretty happy with what they've delivered thus far on the, $30 that I spent on this game. It's just been a nice new title to add to my regular rotation, and I've enjoyed every revisit in the past. I had a good time over the course of this past week playing through again, tried a new build, although admittedly, part of my enjoyment might be due to that new build and how absurdly OP it is. Specifically, I've been playing and trying out the Beastmaster Bear build. So I'm running around, I've got my leap attack, I can jump pretty far with this thing, lands, does some okay damage. Most of my character's personal damage comes from the swipe ability, and I've got various buffs that has this building over time, like I'm attacking faster and deal more damage with consecutive strikes. It's a short buff duration, but it keeps stacking and stacking. I also have this war cry, and it's got modified so that it sucks enemies in, so I get them in tight clumps and stuns them for a short duration. And this Maelstrom ability, which helps CC a bit enemies around me, helps further boost damage with various synergies. But really, ultimately, none of that stuff matters. The thing that matters the most is my bear and the absurd scaling that he's got with the rest of my perks and stats and various pieces of gear. This thing, it just runs around decimating. You know, sometimes it goes off a little bit in weird sections. I don't exactly want it to go away in, but it's gotten better. Toggling between that aggressive and defensive modes helps a lot. And then also the fact that I can have the bear teleport to me with a champion mod affix that makes it so that my companions teleport to me after a movement ability, and that movement ability being Fury Leap. So essentially I'm like Fury Leaping around. Yes, I'm doing some damage with my swipe and I got my War Cry and my Maelstrom, but most of the time I'm casting War Cry because it helps add additional stacks for my bear to call down the avalanche. Literally, he slams the ground and does the avalanche ability and then it cascades in multiple tiers, getting progressively larger and deal more damage as it goes. It's just insane. The thing is really, really crazy, honestly. So I played through the game. I went through the campaign. I actually played it in its entirety, going from the start to the finish. I know a lot of people in Last Epoch in particular, they'll go to the point where they unlock all of their additional perks that they get from the side quest, and then they'll go straight into farming the monolith. But I played through the whole thing because I, of course, wanted to see the new content. Like, I wanted to check out the new zones and all of that. And if you do complete the various additional chapters, you get passive stat boost from doing it. So you don't get the additional idle slots or anything, or the additional skill points for your tree, but you do get some perks, a little bit of buff and power for your character, so that's nice. And I played through, did all that, and I've been going through the monolith systems, doing the end game mapping and farming, engaging a little bit in some of last season's mechanics, but then of course also doing the new season's mechanics and running through those rifts and taking on the new beast boss and having the evolutions make him stronger. And then eventually you can get this necklace that's really cool, where it will summon the beast that you evolved into. It's like final stage. It's going to summon it to fight with you, and as well as also giving you like plus to all skills, which is really, really neat. So yeah, lots of cool stuff here, and I've been enjoying it. I mean, my bear just goes around smashing, swiping, and slamming earthquakes, and like instant deleting bosses. It's unbelievable, really. But that does it for today. Our updated look at Last Epoch, checking out season number 3. If you like what you saw here and are interested in giving the game a look, of course, we do have links available in the description below. But that's all for now. Thank you as always for watching. Hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one. Take it easy.